Hello fellow film friends, my name is Isaac Ward and welcome to Film Fortress. Here at Film Fortress we discuss the latest films and whether they are worth your time and your money. Today we will be discussing The Suicide Squad, which is DC's soft reboot to Suicide Squad released in 2016. To start, I will give you my non-spoiler thoughts and my rating. Then I'll delve into spoilers later in the video. Feel free to check out my spoilers by using the timestamps in the description of the video. Is The Suicide Squad a noteworthy reboot, or is it expendable compared to its 2016 predecessor? Let's find out. The Suicide Squad was released in theaters on August 6, 2021, and it was directed by James Gunn. Some of Gunn's previous work includes Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 in 2014, Guardians Volume 2 in 2017, and Super in 2010, amongst other films. Super is actually an R-rated comedy that focuses on superheroes and action, so it isn't much different than The Suicide Squad. Gunn was given full creative control over this film. Furthermore, the comedy is really sharp, and all of the characters are extremely colorful, like all of Gunn's work. So let's talk about the members of The Suicide Squad. So since this film is a soft reboot, we do have some returning cast members from the 2016 film. Some returning cast members include Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn and Viola Davis as Amanda Waller. Other returning cast members include Colonel Rick Flag, played by Joel Kinnaman, and Captain Boomerang, played by Jai Courtney. This makes the 2016 film not irrelevant, and it can benefit some audience members that have seen that film. Amanda Waller is even more ruthless in this soft reboot, and Harley Quinn is even more crazy than the 2016 film. Most importantly, we get to understand what being a member of the Suicide Squad really means. We are also introduced to several new characters that join the squad. Some of the new characters include Peacemaker, played by John Cena, Bloodsport, played by Idris Elba, Ratcatcher 2, played by Daniela Melchior, Polka Dot Man, played by David Dastmalchian, and my favorite character, King Shark, voiced by Sylvester Stallone. I thought that King Shark and Peacemaker were definitely highlights of this film. They had the best comedic timing and jokes. I also liked the interaction between Peacemaker and Bloodsport because they have a past. I'll explain this more in spoilers. Ratcatcher 2 and Bloodsport have some of the best dramatic material in the movie, and this really worked well with their characters. However, this can cause some problems for the exposition, tone, and pacing of this film. Let's talk about the exposition, pacing, and tone. So since James Gunn was given full control over this movie, we see what he is good at and what he's also bad at. In my opinion, Gunn is great at action sequences, comedy, and soundtracks. However, I think he struggles with tone, exposition, and pacing in his films. For example, all of the exposition delivered in this film is by PowerPoint projectors. This didn't bother me too much because I wasn't watching the film for the plot. I went for the comedy. However, this could bother some audience members. The first act of this film really starts out with a bang, and we see why they are called the Suicide Squad. Then we are introduced to the new characters that I mentioned earlier, and the comedy is on point. However, right around the hour mark, I started to notice a decline in comedy. The film kind of takes a break to show you a side story with Harley Quinn that I didn't really care for. Then the plot becomes a generic rescue mission to find something to stop the villain. However, it's right around this time when Gunn decides to start killing off characters, and that put me back into the film. I wouldn't say that the second act is bad, but I would say that it is slow and it could take you out of the film. Finally, let's talk about the action and villains of this film. This film contains some of the best action sequences I have ever seen from DC. This is due to the hyper-violent, gory sequences that this film delivers. It definitely benefits from the R rating, and it does not hold back. There are also transitions between certain scenes in the film that I thought were really cool and stylized. The villains of this film are really absurd, but I feel like that is what Gunn was going for. He reportedly wanted an absurd, cartoonish villain that would fit in with the comic book-like feel that this film has. So I believe that the villain of this film definitely worked for me, but it could be weird for some audience members. Now let's give it a rating. I love the raunchy comedy, gory action sequences, and killer soundtrack that this film delivers. I also like the new additions to the squad and their unique powers and interactions. However, the pacing really slows down in the second act, and the exposition is sometimes really on the nose. I'm going to give The Suicide Squad an 8 out of 10. Feel free to stay for spoilers or go out and watch this movie if you're interested. Spoilers for the Suicide Squad from here on out. So I loved how the first couple scenes showed a different Suicide Squad team going to the Corto Maltese island, which has an anti-American regime governing it. Some of the members of this different team include Savant, Javelin, and Weasel. However, as you can expect, they all eventually get blown up to smithereens, chopped with helicopters, and one of them even gets drowned. But two familiar faces survive, Harley Quinn and Rick Flag. So I loved how we got to see a failed Suicide Squad mission before we see our actual team. We then learn of the second team that Waller has deployed on the other side of the island, led by our main characters that we'll be seeing throughout the film. One of the standouts in the squad is Bloodsport, because he didn't really want to join the Suicide Squad to begin with. He only joined because he wants to reunite with his daughter. The whole idea behind the Suicide Squad is if you join, your prison sentence is shortened. So this is a perfect opportunity for Bloodsport to clean up his act. So his character really brings a lot of heart and humanity to this film. John Cena as Peacemaker was hilarious because he's constantly trying to one-up Bloodsport, though he never can. He's basically Captain America if he was a douche. Ratcatcher 2 is the kindest member on the squad, and I never could understand why she even got enlisted to the squad. She can control rats, and she has a pet rat, Sebastian, that has a lot of comedy throughout the film. She also reminds Bloodsport of his daughter, and they're constantly trying to protect each other from the dangers they face. So that dynamic was really nice to see. King Shark is voiced by Sylvester Stallone, and he was a scene stealer in this film. He is basically Groot in an R-rated superhero film. He savagely eats humans, tears humans apart, eats someone's brains, and he has the most disgusting kills in the film. But at his core, he's just a lonely shark that needs friends. Harley Quinn is crazy as always, and this film decides to keep her away from the squad for about 75% of the film. During this time, she meets up with a rich benefactor of the Corto Maltese government, and she ends up killing him because she's crazy. This just wasn't very interesting to me, and it didn't really fit in the film very well. However, this caused her to be taken captive by the Corto Maltese government, and it leads up to one of my favorite scenes of the film. In one of my favorite scenes, she grabs two machine guns and just starts mowing down military personnel of the Corto Maltese government. It was a little strange that they were all turning into flowers though, but I really enjoyed seeing that. However, leading up to this scene, the pacing is really slow with her character. Polka Dot Man was a standout due to his absurdity. He must expel dots every couple days to prevent dying, which was strange. He also gets angry by imagining that every single enemy that he fights is his mother, which I thought was interesting. When they battle the big villain of this film, Starro the Conqueror, he imagines that it's his mother, and a giant version of his mother appears, and that was awesome. However, he eventually is crushed by Starro and is killed. I enjoyed Rick Flag trying to keep order amongst the squad, and he eventually finds out that the Corto Maltese government is working on something called Project Starfish. He attempts to take this information and give it to the American government, but Peacemaker stops him immediately. They get into one of the biggest fights, and it leads to one of the most intense scenes of the film. Peacemaker grabs Rick's head and smashes his head right into a broken sink, and then he takes a shard from the broken sink and shoves it right into Rick's heart. I was surprised that they killed Rick Flag, but like James Gunn said, don't get too attached. Bloodsport then shoots Peacemaker right through the jugular and makes a quip about his bullets being smaller, which I thought was pretty funny. However, it is later revealed that Peacemaker survived, and he's going to be getting his own spin-off series in the future. So I really enjoyed this outing from DC, and I thought it was a great time at the movies. Thanks for visiting the Film Fortress today. What did you think of The Suicide Squad? Is it better than its 2016 predecessor? Please let me know in the comment section down below. Finally, for more reviews coming soon, please hit the subscribe button down below. The phrase for my next review is the round table. Finally, remember that your opinions matter and deserve to be valued. See you next time.